Next, we're going to talk about something that has been discovered. Actually, it's an interesting psychological concept that applies not just to speaking and communication, but it also applies to visual design and many other areas of many other different disciplines, actually. And that is the rule of three. Now, the rule of three is a phenomenon that has been discovered in which things that come in groups of three, categories, items, products, ideas, theories that are presented in a group of three are more memorable than other numbers, 4, 5, 6. I can tell you one idea, and that's relatively easy to remember. 2 ideas is easy. It's 1 and 2. And then the maximum that you probably want to get is 3. Beyond that, it starts to become harder for the brain to hold multiple concepts simultaneously. And so therefore, it makes it harder for you to create a connection among 4 ideas or 5 ideas, but it's much easier to create that connection among 3, and it'll be more memorable. So here's some examples. There are 3 keys to our success: our people, our products, and our process, right? Easy to digest, easy to remember. If you talk about past, present, and future, this is where we've been, this is where we are today, and this is where we're going, right? The rule of 3, a simple 3-tiered framework. A longer example. If I'm giving a sales pitch, I might say, our solution leverages your existing data to reveal insights, is quick and easy to integrate into your existing systems, and comes with the best customer service in the industry, right? 3 main points. Easy to digest, easy to remember, easier than it otherwise would be. Another example, over the last quarter, we've been able to reduce ad spending by 20%, improve page speed, all while maintaining or increasing our net promoter score across all product lines, right? So you can see how I can present even a large number of individual details. I can categorize them and clump them into 3 major buckets and then present that package as the 3-tiered framework. It makes for more impactful speaking. It makes for more memorable speaking, more memorable ideas. And then your audience is more likely to take those ideas away and remember them. Next, I'm going to talk about alliteration. Now, alliteration, you may remember from high school English class, is where you repeat the same sound in multiple words. So my company, Cool Communicator, is an example of alliteration, right? It begins with the C sound at the beginning of both words. Whenever you have the opportunity to kind of label your ideas or label your message in that kind of a way where you can use words that have the same beginning sound and leverage the phenomenon of alliteration, you should do that because it does make it more memorable, okay? Another rhetorical technique that is very interesting and very powerful once you get the hang of it. It's a little complex at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually really cool. It's called anaphora. Anaphora is a Greek term. And so this comes from ancient Greek rhetoric now. We're going all the way back, right? And of course, rhetoric for many centuries was a major discipline of study in school and in universities. So what is anaphora? Anaphora is where you repeat the same word or set of words at the beginning of multiple successive phrases, okay? So I found this interesting example, and it's very poetic, many of these rhetorical techniques. But I found this example of, let me see if I can find this here. Yeah, of anaphora, and this is a proverb. It's called "For want of a nail." So just listen to how this plays out. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of a message, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. Interesting, right? So that's an example of anaphora. For want of a, right? Repeated again and again in multiple successive phrases. And so that's an example of repetition just delivered in a more precise and a more strategic way, you could say, right? Another example, getting less poetic now, but more realistic to a modern corporate presentation, would be the following. Our team has built a superior product. Our team has developed a streamlined reporting system, and our team has expedited the delivery process, right? So I'm repeating that phrase, our team has, multiple times. That makes it more memorable. And so there I'm reinforcing this idea that our team is doing so many great things, right? And I'm saying our team has done this, this, and this. So I'm illustrating how many different ways that our team is exceeding expectations, for example, right? Then the next rhetorical technique that I'll give you is essentially the reverse of anaphora, which is called epistrophe. Epistrophe is where you repeat not the beginning of the phrase, but the ending. So the last few words of multiple successive phrases or sentences are repeated. And so there's various examples of this in literature. We see this in poetry. In fact, that little proverb, that poem, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost, right? That's also repeating the ending portion. Was lost, was lost, was lost. That's epistrophe as well. So that makes that more memorable. So you could take the same construction and just kind of flip it around. So if I take the exact same example, I could say, instead of our team has built a superior product, I could say, we've built a superior product thanks to our great people. We've developed a streamlined reporting system thanks to our people. And we've expedited the delivery process thanks to our great people, something like that, right? So you can reinforce that theme again by repeating the closing portion of successive sentences. Now, there's many other rhetorical techniques and rhetorical devices that you can incorporate into your presentations and speeches. Those are just two of them. Alliteration is another sort of an example of that. But anaphora and epistrophe are true rhetorical devices. And so, you start experimenting with those. You're not going to get it perfect right away, but you can try it out as you think about your information and the content of what you're trying to convey to your audience. You can think of unique and creative ways to present it. So a couple more here. Storytelling, okay? Now, storytelling is a 5-hour seminar just in and of itself. So there's a million things that could be said about storytelling. For now, just be aware that storytelling is great because it takes your ideas and your concepts and makes them more tangible and more real. So you're illustrating your ideas in a more concrete way. A story can include information about yourself. It could be a personal story. It could be a personal story about someone else, or maybe even someone in the audience, if it's a positive and relevant story, relevant to the subject matter. A story can also refer to your customer. You can talk about the experience of this particular customer as they have been engaging with our product from beginning to end. What's their story? If you have that information and it's relevant, I highly encourage you to include that, because in business, it's so often hard to get in touch with the customers, and we're so disconnected from them. But if you have that personal story, that can be very powerful if it illustrates something that you're trying to get across in your presentation. You can also talk about the team in general, what your team has been doing, where we were last year, how we've come through the pandemic, the challenges, the trials and tribulations, the successes, the ups and downs, and then where we are today, and where we're going from here. That can be a great story. That can be a great thing to include in your presentation if it's illustrating something important and relevant. A key thing with storytelling is emotions. So as I say, like the emotional ups and downs, the successes, the failures. It's that emotional component that makes the audience feel something significant as you're telling the story. So a story, a really good story, is not just a recounting of details in a series of sequential events, but it's also the emotions that are built into that. So if you're totally a beginner when it comes to storytelling, like I was once upon a time, you can experiment with that. And you can try that and try that out, and try it out in a small form. Try out a story at the very beginning of your presentation for like 30 seconds or 1 minute. Practice it, rehearse it, maybe practice it in front of some colleagues or friends, get their feedback, see what they have to say about it, and then try it in the actual presentation. You could also experiment by just giving your normal presentation and telling a story at the end. So you could say, that's the basic gist of my presentation. I just want to close with a story about a customer that I recently was able to get in touch with, blah, blah, blah. And then you continue with the story from there. So those are some ways to start experimenting with storytelling. A couple more here. Illustrate concepts with tangible examples. This makes it very memorable. I talk a lot with my clients and students about alternating between high level and low level. High level refers to overall general concepts, theories, abstract ideas, theory, patterns, trends, right? That's all high level stuff. Low level refers to details and specific examples or manifestations or illustrations of those high level concepts. So for example, you might be talking about the trend of people coming back to the office at the end of the pandemic, for example. That's a high level theoretical trend. It's fairly abstract. So many companies are hiring people again, and X thousands of workers are coming back into the office. High level trends. Then you go low level, and you present a specific story of an individual person, maybe Joanne, who's now coming back to the office after 6 months or 10 months of being out of the office. What's her story? What are her challenges? How does she feel about it? Right? That's a specific low-level example. It's a detailed illustration of that high-level concept. You see that in journalism all the time. A lot of times you read an article in the New York Times, for example, and they start out with a personal story of a specific individual that has been affected or is being affected by the story, whatever the story is that they're covering. And then they zoom out and they talk about the larger trend, in this part of the state, and what does this mean, for X number of families that are affected by this event, et cetera, right? So think about alternating high level and low level, illustrating your high level concepts with tangible examples. It makes your presentation much more memorable and much more impactful. The last quick thing I'm going to touch on here is nonverbals, okay? Your nonverbal communication, body language, vocal tonality, facial expressions, hand gestures, these are a critical part of your delivery and a critical part of your presentation and the impact that you can make in your presentation. Specifically, I just want to highlight one technique in particular, which is slowing down and embracing silence. Now, a lot of times, speakers and presenters are deathly afraid of silence. They have an allergic reaction to silence. We tend to assume that we have to just keep talking and talking and talking continuously throughout our presentation, and we think that that's necessary. And there's a number of psychological reasons why that is. Nervousness. We feel under pressure. We might feel like if we're not really dynamic or really talkative, that we're going to lose our audience. It's actually the opposite. When you talk too much and you go too excessive, what ends up happening is your audience is more likely to disengage. But when you mix verbal content with silence and you pause periodically to build anticipation, that enables you to highlight specific ideas or phrases or talking points and to draw attention to them, right? So you build that anticipation, you draw the audience's attention to that specific idea that you're about to say, and thus it becomes more memorable. All right. So that's a simple nonverbal technique. Everything to this point has been verbal in terms of what you're saying. That's a nonverbal technique using silence or just pacing and adjusting your speaking speed so that you can make that greater impact and memorability. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.